At the ICPA 2022 conference, Justin mentioned the 100th monkey and how ICPA has grown really based on that principle. And he mentioned the collaboration with ICPA and Common Knowledge Trust. And that's what I'm going to talk about today, is how ICPA members can become the 100th monkey, or Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point, and spread out this concept very broadly so that it grows and grows into all of our cultural zeitgeists. And why is it possible to spread this concept out into all of our cultures? Because this concept fits into any political, medical belief system, religion, or ideology. But why is it possible to spread this concept across all of that? It just goes back to the simple. 100% of pregnant women are going to give birth. That's just it. And each pregnant woman has to do the activity of birthing her baby one way or another, under all circumstances. And this concept is about that, and how pregnant women and their families should approach birth, which is to become skilled. Because everyone can do that, whether they lack choices or have choices, or the choices change, or that they make choices that don't suit you. Is the 100th monkey or tipping point hard to achieve? Well, from the tipping point, there are three characteristics. One is contagiousness. That's what Common Knowledge Trust is asking ICPA members to do, is to start to make this concept contagious. And two, from the tipping point, the fact that little causes can have big effects. And this is in some ways a little cause in the big scheme of things. But imagine if we had a self-learning, skilled birthing population broadly and inclusive of all of those 100% of pregnant women who have to do this activity. This can have big effects. And third, from the tipping point, that change happens not gradually, but in one dramatic moment. It's not exactly instantaneous in time. You have 8,000 plus ICPA members. Just let's say you only worked with 10 people a year who are pregnant. That's 80,000 people. And by next year, it's 160,000. And imagine if you tell all of your clients the concept and tell them to tell their friends and relatives. We can tip this. We can either grow this new childbirth trend, or from my viewpoint, having lived through the potential back then in the 1970s, this is a revitalization of what could have possibly been. Many of you probably know Malcolm Gladwell, The Tipping Point, and he says there are three types of people that create this tipping point. Mavens, who can explain the differences between this and that, but they hold no judgment. In other words, when we have the handout, you can explain to your clients the differences between hypnobirthing and birthing better, or Lamaze and Bradley, but you don't hold a judgment about it. And that's the mavens. The connectors know lots of people. ICPA members do that by the nature of their profession. And salespeople, those who can explain why something is good and worth it. We don't care within the concept if you're the salesperson for one or more of the skills-based methods. That's up to you individually. Can you be the 100th monkey? Common Knowledge Trust. I am spending my time creating this course with the belief you can. And you have some advantages. One is you work with pregnant families and you're not the primary birth professionals. And you have a philosophy called salutogenesis. And that philosophy has two elements. One is the organization and the other is health and wellness. But in reality, salutogenesis is never explained on an individual basis of having resources for oneself to deal with times of stress. It doesn't actually say those people have to do it through health and wellness. And for us as Common Knowledge Trust, that's great because we believe in the 100% of pregnant women who are going to give birth one way or another, whether they do it with health or wellness, whether they do it with medical care, whether they do it with traditional health care, whether they do a combination of any of all of those. Because 100% of pregnant women are going to give birth one way or another. And it's an activity they're going to do. Does this new or revitalized childbirth trend deserve growth in your attention? Well, Common Knowledge Trust believes it does, and all the families I worked with believe it does. And we have 50 years of saying this over and over again. If it's yes to ICPA and ICPA members, then you have to believe it. You have to believe that a self-learning skilled birthing population is beneficial to mankind and to families and to individuals and to society, to cultures. And you have to know enough of how to explain this concept to your clients and others. And then you have to explain it very clearly and concisely and not mix it up with other things. In other words, you have to keep it simple, stupid, and it has to be usable by the broadest number of those 100% of pregnant women. And you do that by repeat, repeat, repeat. Our trust, Common Knowledge Trust, really believes that ICPA can lead this, but it's a choice that each of you has to make. You can bring forth those two elements of salutogenesis. Your clients know that ICPA is focused on wellness and not pathology. But the other part of salutogenesis is what Common Knowledge Trust is focused on. By growing a self-learning skilled birthing population, families will have resources to meet life's challenges in pregnancy and birth, whether through a health and wellness model, whether through a pathology model, no matter what health and wellness system they use, without prejudice, without judging values. And all we want you to do is to give people the concept in the handout. ICPA members are bringing a professional set of skills into the collaboration with Common Knowledge Trust. And Common Knowledge Trust is bringing the resources, the concept, and the Birthing Better skills to encourage individuals to become skilled to do the activity of birthing their baby, which reduces the stressors of the activity. Just become skilled. You need to understand very clearly that for me as the director of Common Knowledge Trust, and for me as a person, the concept is the most important. Just separate the concept from the Birthing Better skills. The Birthing Better skills are tucked into the handout along with other skills-based methods, but the concept is overarching. It should include all skills-based methods, and as more get created, that handout should get a little bit longer. The concept has to be spread, the word of it. When you're pregnant, become skilled, use skills, do the activity of birth. Say that any way you want. Give out the handout so people can choose what skills-based method they would like to use. And use the above techniques and characteristics from the tipping point. Be contagious with it. These little efforts with each of your clients can have this massive effect on our societies. And change can happen very dramatically, but that doesn't mean instantaneously. And use your mavenness. Hold no judgment, but explain the difference in the skills-based methods. Be connectors. Know lots of people. And connect people to other people. Tell your clients to tell their friends and family. Really be a good salesperson of this concept. You have to believe in this, and you have to know enough to explain this to others so that they can clearly explain it to others. And that's why it's important to keep it simple. Just find the sentence. It's just normal and natural when you're pregnant to learn some skills and use those skills to do the activity of birthing our baby. You got to do the activity of birthing your baby because you're pregnant now, and 100% of pregnant women are going to birth their baby. So learn some skills, and then when you do the activity, use the skills as best you can. Hey, the two of you are going to become parents, and you're going to birth your baby. So learn some skills to do that, and then work together to do that. Nobody's going to stop you from using your skills. It's an activity you got to do. So do it with some skills. They don't have to be perfect. Just any skill is better than none. And this has to be usable by the broadest percent of those 100% of pregnant women without shame, blame, guilt, or disappointment. Why should you care if a woman has a non-laboring cesarean? Why should you even care in your family if you wanted a natural birth and ended up with a cesarean? Why should you care? You're doing the activity of birthing your baby. And if you care, then one child becomes the cesarean birth and the other child becomes my home birth. You cannot do this. We have to stop doing this. So find your simple sentences. When you're pregnant, learn skills, use skills. That's a simple sentence. If you are not clear, you will confuse people. Because people will come back to you and say, well, the skills didn't give me a natural birth. That's not their intention. The intention is use skills to do the activity. Did you keep using your skills when your birth stopped being natural? And it confuses people if you're not clear. Oh, I believe that these skills are going to give me a pain-free labor. No, they're not. But with skills, you are going to cope better, and that reduces your suffering. or a belief that skills can prevent a cesarean section. Doesn't matter how you're doing the activity of birthing your baby. A cesarean is an activity. You have to get to the hospital. That takes time. You're doing the activity of moving. You're going to be prepped. That takes time. Lots of time to use skills. During the surgery, being sewn up, and recovery. This is the activity we are doing to birth our baby. And we can use skills no matter how that activity unfolds. And we should use skills no matter how that activity unfolds. So you have to be clear, or it will confuse people who believe that this concept is once again only for low-risk women having home births, working with a midwife, and preventing them from having interventions. If you confuse this concept with some of your values or some of your clients' values, then you will never get this concept to tip, or you'll never be part of that 100th monkey. And we are asking ICPA to crack this open, light a fire under this revitalized childbirth trend, or a new one if you don't know that people can be skilled. And use the KISS principle, which is keep it simple, stupid. And so when people question you about it, you have to bring it back to simple. And what's simple? 100% of pregnant women are going to give birth. It's an activity. Learn some skills and use them. In all births, it's your baby's birth. You want to do X. You know that there are skills to do X, but you don't happen to know those skills at the present time. So what do? You learn the skills. And how do you learn the skills? You practice them. And as you practice the skills to do X, you get better. And if there's a particular event, like climbing Mount Everest, then you have learned the skills, you've practiced those skills until you're ready, and then you go climb Mount Everest. But you can't practice birth. And it's one-off. You can't repeat it. And you're never going to forget it. We, men and women, like myself, are saying to other men and women, it's common sense and beneficial when you're pregnant to learn some skills, to do this one-off activity that cannot be repeated and that you will never forget and is life-transforming. Learn some skills and do this activity with some level of skill. They may not be perfect. Any skill is better than none. Well, you all know that there are physiological, normal, and natural things like being randy or being hungry. Birth's the same way. Pregnancy and childbirth are normal life events. Being randy and hungry are all normal life events. They're natural and physiological. Do you use skills to do any of these? What about being hungry? Well, little children don't really cook well, but how many times have you taken things out of your children's mouths that they shouldn't have put into them? And so why do you think giving birth hasn't really been loaded with skills from the get-go? And I explain that in some of the other videos because of my experience in many, many cultures. No culture actually has skills to do the activity of birth. They bookend it. They have lots of skills and do's and don'ts to try to prevent problems and tragedies in the birth and with the mother and baby after the birth. But women are stuck with the truth, and we're asking this truth to shift to another truth. And the original truth is you never know what your birth's going to be like. That will always stay true, but it's followed with an inaccuracy. Therefore, there's nothing you really can do to prepare for it. And what we're saying is Lamaze, Bradley, and particularly, not so much Grantley, Dick Reed, they showed that having some level of skills is a way to prepare for the activity of birthing your baby and helps you hugely to reduce the suffering. Let's say you learned some skills for your birth, but they either went out the window once birth started, or they just didn't adapt or adjust well, or things changed in your birth so you stopped using them. So what would you do next time? Not bother? That's an option. It's a choice. Decide to apply them better, or possibly learn more effective ones. As I said in other videos, because the message in the 80s from very famous people was that Cows and cats aren't taught to birth. Women don't need to. We instinctively know how to birth. Therefore, from the 70s to the 90s, with the exception of Birthing Better, no other skills-based method was developed. 20 years was lost. That can change, but it only changes if the concept gets out there broadly and people get inspired to evolve more skills-based methods. So what you want to do is to also listen to what women say about the skills. That's what we're asking in the protocol. How did the skills work? How they didn't work? Collect your stories. Once you collect stories of skilled birthing families, other families will come on board. That's what Andrea learned. And keep reminding your client that some skill is better than none, and that birth memories are lifelong memories. That we have to do this infrequent, one-off, can't be replayed, massive activity, and we have to ask ourselves, and what I've asked for 50 years is, why are we so resistant to this concept? And honestly, it just boils down to philosophy. Either you just believe there's nothing you can do to prepare for the birth, or you just believe women kind of know how to do it because we've always done it. So what do skilled fathers say? Well, it's also very diverse. Just give me something practical, I'll do it. The other thing is they're very glad to know that skills can be used in all births. First, they can be very uncomfortable feeling that if they're in the hospital, they can't use the skills, or if they're home, the midwife is going to do it. And they're just very glad to know that they can use skills in all circumstances. Nobody's expecting them to, so they have to do it. And fathers are very clear. I really want to help. I really want to help. Just tell me how. Also, it really mattered to her. And thank God I had these skills. I'm a better dad. I'm a better partner. I'm a better human being. And we talk about this in another video about the continuity of skilled self. That we're all skilled, we get pregnant, fall into a black hole, and then we get spit out being a parent after the birth. So instead, Birthing Better families develop skills for pregnancy, all 5 phases of them, to prepare for birth, and the activity of birthing. But there's a fact here. Women are not going to rise up. They're not going to be the 100th monkey. Because women, we are stuck with that truth. You never know what our birth's going to be like, and therefore there's nothing we can really do to prepare for it. And in some ways, they're right. When you're learning skills and you can't practice, you don't know whether you're learning the right skills. And how do you know when to use them? The women are not going to rise up, because the women who have had good births are never going to rise up, and the women who have bad births don't know how to rise up to what. Because the idea of a good birth was having a natural birth in which the word natural was never defined, pain-free labor, to which most women go, you gotta be kidding me, and without any medical care? And that all medical care is interventions and imposed and unnecessary unless a woman has a medical high risk, and therefore she falls into a different category? But she doesn't fall into a different category. She's one of the 100% of pregnant women who are going to give birth, and she has to do the activity of it. Whether she has hoses coming out of every single hole, whether she has multiple risks or none, whether she's healthy but the baby has a risk. It doesn't matter. Keep it simple. Bring it back to 100% of pregnant women are going to give birth. It's an activity. You'll do it better if you have skills. Because a good birth or a bad birth, was it luck? Was it choices? Was it what other people did or didn't do for me? What we learned in 50 years was that having skills mattered. We were less sensitive to other factors. We just got on with it, applied skills. What is the question that women are asked after birth? What's the most common question? How was your birth? Think about your answers. How was your birth? Was it good? Was it bad? They did this, they did that. I felt this, I felt that. It happened at this time or that time. But nobody asks, well, how did you do the activity of birthing your baby? Sometimes we ask each other, well, how did you learn to breastfeed? Or how did you get your baby to sleep at night? Or how did you really introduce solids? Or how did you wean your kid? Or how did you potty train him? We ask about those activities, but we don't ask about how you did the activity of birthing your baby. Women are not going to be the 100th monkey alone. It's a rise up. First of all, pregnancy doesn't start January 1st and then 9 months later for everybody. It's an ongoing thing. But you, as the women and men of ICPA, you can be the 100th monkey. And if there are 8,000, 9,000 of you, you can be that many. And the other reason women are not going to be the 100th monkey is that we're the ones in the mummy wars. We are divided by the mummy wars, which are based on philosophy, sometimes religion, sometimes culture. We never think really, of the reality of what it means to be one of 100% of pregnant women who are going to do the activity of birthing our baby. We kind of get it, but we fluff that one right off. It will take a dedicated group of men and women like yourselves who see the common sense and who want to promote this concept and coordinate with Common Knowledge Trust and myself in how best to do this and follow the simple protocol. And to remember, this is for everyone. So the bottom line, stop right now and just say out loud how you're understanding the concept. And do that in several sentences, adapt that. And when you're saying that, please put aside your personal beliefs and values. This is something bigger than just you individually, bigger than ICPA, bigger than Common Knowledge Trust, bigger than me. This is about 100% of pregnant women that are going to give birth one way or another. And what we're saying is become skilled to do the activity. We are speaking to our humanity. Stop yourself from diverting the conversation, and stop women from diverting the conversation as well. Being skilled is separate than making choices or lacking them. Choices are what you want or don't want. Skills are what you do. How was your birth is really the question about choices or lack of them. Well, how'd you do the activity of birthing your baby? All about the skills. So just stick to the point of the concept. You're pregnant, learn some skills. It's an activity, use them. Be inspirational. You can change the world for ICPA and ICPA members.